Later that afternoon, Gary seeks guidance from the abbot.
You've obviously been through much bigger traumas than most people, thank God, will have to go through. Yeah. But I think what the monastery can give you is a place of acceptance.
You know, instead of putting myself down, I might as well start to be positive instead of being negative about the aspects of the past of my life, because I believe, and I do believe, that I'm going to find freedom from it. I really do.
Yeah. It's interesting what you said about not putting yourself down so much, because I've noticed that you did.
I've done it all my life.
Do that a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things I would want to get you to just reflect on, is that you don't need to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that living in a community teaches you is that everybody has got some particular aspect of themselves that pulls them down.
This morning, one of us confessed to a pain and a guilt which brought tears. And I did realise that all of us are here, perhaps, to search out for those sore points in our lives, those areas of great hurt, which we have buried, which I have buried, and which we do not care to revisit too often.
Obviously something happened with Gary today, I'm not quite sure what it was. He told me a little bit, so obviously there's a few issues going on there. We all have issues at the end of the day. Some just a bit more clearer than others, and some of us can deal with them and some of us can't.
I just want to be content and at peace with who I am. And you know, it's starting to happen. And I never, ever, ever thought in my life it would happen in a place like this here.
Although not everyone is ready to be as open and honest as Gary, Tony has realised that if he too is to get the most out of his time in the monastery, he will need to face up to his past.
My partner made redundant from the advertising agency we were working for, so we got paid off and nothing came up for a while, and you know, I became increasingly despondent and I started drinking too much, and then that became a routine, and I found myself in a fairly dark place, entertaining some pretty dark thoughts, I suppose. I didn't want to carry on. I didn't want to physically occupy another single second or minute on the earth. I wanted somehow for the problem to be taken away. So I turned to my parents, you know, and they whisked me off to hospital, and within 24 hours I was, you know, in a safe place. It was just a rehab centre for drugs and booze. I'm more willing to talk about it because things are changing for me in this place. But, you know, I'm a grown man and I should be able to face up to my responsibilities. And, you know, if I can't handle my drink, then that's just something I need to adjust in my life.
For Nick, obedience to the rule is not a hardship.
But this is a spot I've chosen in the monastery, and I usually come here before the first office, at about 6. I'll come here at about 6 o'clock and just walk up and down gently for about 15 minutes and then go into the church. I find the mornings are quite a good time for me to sort of chew things over, as the monks are telling us. We need to chew things over.
For the rest of the group, the concept of obedience is proving more challenging.
We're going to look for virgins and cigarettes in the nearest town.
Listen, I am not looking for virgins, he might be. I'm looking for cigarettes and chocolate and Lucozade.
I'm definitely looking for virgins and cigarettes. But if all we can get is Lucozade, then that's fine. Yep.
Yep.
Fit.
Yep. Fit.
Let's go.
Ready.
In the grand scheme of things, jogging down to the shops for treats, listening to Stevie Wonder's greatest hits on your personal stereo, or grabbing 40 winks instead of reading your Bible are minor misdemeanors. But to Father Christopher, these breaches of the rules represent a basic misunderstanding of what obedience, a core monastic value, is really about.
I'm just suffering from total exhaustion. And I just seem to be dragging my rather limp bulk from one church to the next, to the next.
I think the essence of it is it's tiring being obedient to somebody else's timetable.
I haven't been that obedient.
We'll talk about it.
Cool.
Right, so are the chaps ready?
Yeah, we're all done.
Think
Are they next door? Good.
well, there's Anthony and me.
Good.
Father Christopher feels it's time to introduce the group to some of Benedict's more challenging ideas.
If you look at the way St. Benedict writes his rule, it's very obvious that obedience, silence and humility are at the heart of what he thinks are the tools that monks use in order to respond to God's love. So let's just take the interesting practical example that Tony brought up this morning. Do you want to share that with us?
What about running down to the shop?
Yes.
It didn't take a genius to work out that, I was doing wrong. I was disobeying, so I was
Right.
indulging temptation.
Yes, and another point Anthony just made.
Not asking permission.
So you feel indulging yourself, not asking permission. And I think the point to hang on to, though, is that it's not a discussion about whether or not chocolate is a good thing or a bad thing. It's not about that. It's to do with how you respond to your own impulses and how you allow yourself to be shaped by other people's lives, which is the permission thing. And this is the kind of depth at which Benedict's proposing it to us. And what he wants you to achieve is that inner freedom which says, well, my impulse is to go that way, but I'm being asked to go the other way, so I'll go the other way, because I want to be free from that impulse. And I think there is a bit around in contemporary society that thinks that I'm being able to indulge my impulses when I want is the peak of freedom. And what the rule is saying is, actually, no, there is a better freedom. And I think that's the challenge for you is this way of life going to help you to be true to yourself in a new way and find a new freedom? Or is it just going to stay at the level of, I'll follow the routine and occasionally make little trips out to sort of assuage the pain of that? And I think that's the challenge.
No more trips to the shop.
Oh, well spotted, Tony.
For those in need of refocusing, Father Christopher's words have the desired effect.
The wonderful thing about Benedictine life is that it's not like training an army. What we're saying is we want people to enter into this life gradually till it becomes their own way of life, their own values, and that it starts to change the way they approach other people, starts to change the way they approach themselves, life, and helps them to be more attentive to the needs of others and attentive to the voice of God.
Nick has no problem being attentive, but Father Mark, his spiritual guide, is keen to try and pin him down on the question of faith.
Within the way you see things right now, is God someone or something requiring translation?
Well, the word, yes, because the word is in itself only a word and has no intrinsic meaning. So you have to say, well, what do we mean by this word, God?
And what do you mean by God?
That's a big one.
You've got 5 minutes.